Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Psalms, who were written by someone other than David, Anonymous, or Asaph. Um, so, we're talking about Psalm 90, and we're taking more time with this psalm than any of the psalms we're going to talk about. This is our third session on Psalm 90, and I don't think we can leave Psalm 90 without talking about it in connection to two psalms by David. And the first is Psalm 23. And I want to just look at the first verse of each psalm. Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want." And Psalm 90 says, "Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations." So I want to start there, and then I want to look at just generally. Um, um, I love to compare Psalm 23 and Psalm 90 because um, I think the beginning lines tell us the deepest part of the heart of the author of the psalm. So when David, who spent his later childhood and early teenagehood, his early years as a teenager, when he was 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, before he fought Goliath and became a man of war, was a shepherd. And that experience and that sensibility never leaves him his entire life. When he's writing psalms, he's using the imagery of shepherding, and none more so than this one. And I don't know that there's another psalm that we know better than Psalm 23 and Psalm 90. I mean, those are the two that loom the largest in our consciousness, in the human consciousness through the ages. And that there's a reason for that. They speak so directly to the truth, and yet that of who we are and who we are in front of God and who God is, and yet they both see things a little differently. And of course, David knows a lot more about the Messiah than Moses is ever going to know. Moses knows that there will be a prophet that will follow like him, and that's what he knows. But David knows more, a lot more. But those opening lines, so David the shepherd, and we know that when he was that young man, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, that he was out at night with the small flock, and there are predators, there are lions, there are bears, and there were in those days in Palestine, and he had to physically get between himself and the bear to keep the bear or the lion from the flock. He had his hands on the mane of a lion. Um, it, we are told this, and so it's got to be frightening for a boy that age to be out there and to know you're the one who has to take care of these sheep. And yet, at some point, there is a realization that you're not alone out there taking care of these sheep, that there's someone taking care of you. And that informs David's life for the rest of his life. Um, it's an amazing thing. It is the deepest part of his heart, this realization that the Lord is my shepherd. He's my shepherd, and therefore I don't need anything because he's taking care of me. And that's David's expectation that God's going to take care of him. Times are going to get tough. I'm going to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, but you're going to be with me. And I am eventually going to dwell in the house of the Lord forever after goodness and mercy have followed me my entire life. Those are David's expectations, that God is always going to be there, that God is always going to care for him as a shepherd does his sheep, and that he's going to end up living in God's house with God for eternity. Those are David's expectations. Those are not Moses' expectations in Psalm 90. So in Psalm 90, Moses' expectations are that we get to see God's glory, and that our children get to see God's glory, and that the thing we're going to build will last for a while, and that our bad days will equal our good days. I mean, that's what he's hoping for, and that's all he's hoping for. But that opening line tells us as much about Moses, the one in Psalm 90, as Psalm 23 tells us about David. Let's think about Moses for a minute. So he's born a Hebrew slave. He's raised as a prince of Egypt. And then he has to flee. And he spends 40 years of his life as a nomadic shepherd, um, and then he spends another 40 years of his life freeing his people from enslavement and leading them around the wilderness. Where is home? Can you identify home, the place that you belong? Maybe it's the place of your birth, the town you grew up in, or maybe it's the place you live right now. But who are you, and do you belong? And the children of Israel themselves, could they call Egypt home at all? I mean, they were enslaved there. They know they didn't belong there. They were being held against their will, although they came voluntarily. They came voluntarily because of a famine, and they were being held as a captive labor force. And yet, a whole generation had to die before they went into the wilderness. So, where do they call home? Moses, he answers that for himself and for all of God's people who were listening to him. Lord, you, you have been our dwelling place. You are our dwelling place now in all generations. Wherever you are, if we are with you, we are home. If you are with us, we are home. We don't need a plot of land with a border. We have you, your home. And if the children of Israel would have listened to that and had the same concept in their minds that Moses had, how different would their history have been? Okay. Well, thank you for spending 6 or 7 good minutes with me this morning. Next time, we're going to look at Psalm 90 and Psalm 103. Thank you so much for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.